All right, this is the weekly video for both June gold and June 30-year U.S. Treasuries, but I will be looking at day charts only and doing a little forecasting. I think the weekly chart can get a little confusing because the numbers are slightly off, and given the fact this is a day-to-day progression, that I'll just start, we'll shoot it once a week on a Sunday. It'll be your video for the week to give you kind of the broader idea of what's going on here. Let's take a look. This is actually what you're viewing right now is gold. I'll start with gold, and in fact, you can see on the newsletter itself, it's at the bottom. I can bump this up a bit so you can see what we're looking at. In fact, this is probably the best way to go about doing this. Is just look at this particular letter. Anyway, so we've got a new descending speed line. We put out a new move low a couple of days ago following the February high, and so that requires a reconstruction of a 1/3 speed line, which actually that speed line, the old one, held beautifully last week when the low from a couple of weeks ago was the low. We took it out, so we reconstruct. It's at 1294.5 on Monday, and if we want to take a look, this is Monday's 1294.5. We go to Friday the 10th. It drops to 1289.7. As you can see on my CQG, you can see that number will be 1289.7 on Friday. This, of course, assumes that this low is good through this week. If we put out a new low, then this speed line adjusts. But 1289.7 drops from the mid 90s down into the upper 80s by the end of the week. And that is our buy signal, if you will, into later May. Right now, we have tested long-term support. This is a 4-star multi-week support level. This ascending 2/3 speed line. It looks like a trend line off these lows, but it's actually a speed line from this low to this high, 2/3 back right here, and it's held last week, I think, to the just about the very tick. So it comes in at 1267.6 on Monday, and by Friday it rises to 1269.3. So it's in the upper 60s all week long. This is our floor of support through May, and in fact, holding above this 1324.5 channel top is expected. I keep saying, let's just say 2 to 3 weeks now. It's been 3 to 5, but it looks like a possible 2 to 3 week target here. Let's just say by the end of May. And if we were to close today above 1294.5, that is narrowed to likely by the end of next week. 1324.5 able to contain monthly highs when tested. So if it's late May into early June, it could contain buying through June. And in fact, it is a significant upside pivot point into summer. So let's take a look. I'm just going to do this on the spot here right now by showing you what that target would be if we happened to settle above that structure. And I believe this is roughly that structure here. Now 1324.2, is that right? No, we've got 24.5. I may have to no, here we go. This will be it right here. There we go, 24.5. All right, so we take this channel top out. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but this is all big picture stuff. All right, it'll be this. This would be the target. 3 to 5 weeks more into the 1380s, 1390s perhaps as we continue into early June. All right. So I'm not going to label these in this video. Just know that if we close above the 1324.5 channel top in the coming weeks, this market enters another phase of bullish activity, expecting, say, the 1390s as we continue into later June activity. Okay, so there's that. Let's look at the downside, that if we settled today or any day this week below this speed line, and you'll be updated on all of these numbers on a day-by-day basis, of course. These are Mondays reflected on this chart. So if we close below 1267.6, then the next week, 2, 3 at the most should yield 1241.5, and this is dropping daily. It gets down into the lower 1230s by mid-May. And that is a level that can quite easily contain weekly selling pressures when tested. And in fact, once we test it, you could say the market then poised for rotating or recovering back into the 1260s or 70s over the following several weeks. And that's why if we close below 1267.6, while I have an ultimate target at 1189.3 And that's a tough one. I'd say by the end of June, perhaps we could get down there if we close today below 1267.6. But you need to allow kind of a hesitation region that could play out for several weeks at this 1241 half channel bottom. So I think that's about it for the gold market. Let's take a look at the 30-year bonds. And once again, I can bump this up just a bit. And as you can see here, I'll show you on the charts themselves, but you have a trend line here that we slipped below a bit on Friday at 146.28, and that's right here. That is our support into later week. Sorry, this just does that automatically. And in fact, holding above 146.28, we can over the next 3 to 5 days test this resistance area. It's kind of a revised resistance now, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Along the way, 147.24 can contain session strength, so Monday highs perhaps. If we close above 147.24, then the 3 to 5 day likelihood of 148.18 while holding above 146.28 becomes more like a 1 to 2 day objective. 148.18 able to contain buying into later, if not the balance of the week. It's also a meaningful upside continuation point into later May. So let's take a look at that. This is, here we go, that'll be right here. Okay, so this is 146.28 as I just showed you, and we're still talking the upside scenario. This is 148.18, a simple channel top that can absorb buying into later week. It's also a really clear upward pivot point into later May. There's an old high here at 148.17 as well, so there's a little symmetry here. And so under the scenario of closing above 148.18, that would be considered a meaningful secondary buy signal or a buy signal, not secondary, into later May. I would then, expect this is high here. I'm sorry, the high settlement price here of 150.04, and that's an area where we could top out at least on a daily basis, if not into on a 2 to 3 day basis. But really, ultimately, closing above 148.18, you should allow for bullish continuation into the 152 handle, 153 handle even as we continue into early June trade. This structure able to contain monthly buying pressures when tested. And so after having tested, and why am I, constructive or bullish? I can't say that I'm bullish the bond market, but I do think that this channel structure is an area above which this market, yeah, it could actually continue to trade sideways for weeks on end, but there is an upward inclination, I think, above 144.28, and that level by the end of the week is at 145 even. So the upper 144 handle essentially through the week is our base of support as we look ahead through May and even through the balance of the second quarter. Holding above this, which is really about a 4 or 5 month structure, does maintain a stable to even bullish dynamic. And for the week itself, we are after having tested 146.28, that 148.18 level I just showed you a moment ago is likely over the next 3 to 5 days. And once again, with the settlement above 148.18, the 152, 153 handle in reach within several weeks, 3 to 5 at the most. Now, downside, if we close today below 146.28, then I think we should reach 144.28 by Friday's close. And there is, you got a little symmetry here with a channel bottom that is at, it doesn't want to show me right now. Bear with me here. We have a channel bottom that today is at 144.24. Okay, so this will be a range of support. I think that this channel structure could contain intraday activity. In other words, we could violate the 144.28 structure and test this channel bottom and then close back above 144.28 by the end of the day, and it's still considered a hold. But if we close below certainly both of these structures, then we're off into several weeks bearish continuation down to what is now at 140.19, and by Friday will be 140.23. This is our primary support through the balance of the second quarter, and it's also our downward pivot point into later years. I'll talk a lot about that if we happen to approach it. But I do believe, let's take a look at the newsletter once again. I think I've said everything pretty clearly. This is a weekly video. These numbers will change daily. You will be apprised of those changes through the week on a day-by-day basis, and likely audio supplement on a day-to-day. And that's really all I've got for the week of Monday. the week of Monday, the week of May 6th. And that's all I've got to say. 10-minute video, almost on the money. And that's all I got to say.